You owe me $20,000 for raising your husband, my mother-in-law announced at the county clerk's office, loud enough for the couple behind us to stop filling out their marriage license. My dad, who had been quiet all morning in his navy suit and old Marine tie clip, looked her straight in the eye and said, "I'll give you $20 and a bus ticket if you promise to stop embarrassing yourself in public." The clerk dropped her pen laughing, and then the guests, all 12 of them, went dead silent when my mother-in-law slapped a folder of papers on the counter and said, "Fine, then let's talk about the signatures Ashley has been forging." That was the moment my wedding turned into a crime scene. But to understand why a woman in beige pearls tried to invoice me for my husband like he was a used refrigerator, you have to go back to the damp November when all of this started. Not the wedding, not the clerk's office, not the folder. Back to our little cul-de-sac in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio, where the trees had gone bare and the sidewalks looked permanently wet. Back to me, standing in my kitchen at 6:12 in the morning, wearing fuzzy socks, reheating yesterday's coffee, and believing, like an idiot, that after 16 years with the same man, I knew every corner of my own life. My name is Ashley Whitaker. I was 41 then, a real estate agent with a decent reputation, a reliable crossover that always smelled faintly like printer paper and peppermint gum, and a bad habit of answering client texts while brushing my teeth. I sold houses for a living, which meant I noticed everything: foundation cracks, fresh paint over water damage, nervous husbands, overexcited buyers, kitchens staged to hide divorce. I could walk into a split level and tell you in 10 minutes whether the owners were moving up, moving out, or running away. And still, I missed what was happening in my own house. My husband Nolan and I had been together 16 years. We weren't legally married at first, mostly because life kept stepping in front of us with muddy boots. His apprenticeship, my first brokerage, his torn ACL, my mother's cancer scare, the year the housing market made me cry in the laundry room twice a week. Then one day we realized we had a mortgage, joint Costco membership, a shared emergency vet fund, and an old dachshund named Mabel who had more orthopedic equipment than either of us. "We are basically married," Nolan used to say. "Basically married doesn't get me your health insurance," I'd answer. He'd grin and kiss my forehead. "Romantic as ever, Ash." That was us, not flashy, not perfect, but solid in the way older houses are solid, creaky, patched in places, warm when the furnace worked. We lived in a brick ranch with black shutters and a front porch just big enough for 2 chairs and 1 dog bed. The neighborhood was the kind of place where people pretended not to watch each other through blinds, then texted if a garage door stayed open too long. In November, everyone's lawns were flat and brown, with those sad, inflatable turkeys sagging in the drizzle. Mabel, our 13-year-old dachshund, ruled the house from a heated pad near the back door. She had cloudy eyes, a judgmental little face, and a bark like a car alarm with a sinus infection. Every morning, Nolan carried her down the 2 steps to the yard because her back legs had gotten unreliable. "You're milking this," he'd tell her. Mabel would stare at him like she paid property taxes. Nolan worked as an electrical project manager for a commercial contractor. He was 42, broad-shouldered, steady, the kind of man who kept receipts in labeled envelopes and still called his high school football coach Sir. He made pancakes on snow days. He never let my gas tank drop below a quarter. If I had a showing after dark, he'd text, "Send me the address," and then 10 minutes later, "You good?" I didn't marry him for butterflies. I stayed because he was a porch light. His family, though, was complicated. Nolan's biological mom died when he was 9, a heart issue nobody saw coming. His dad, Paul, remarried 2 years later to a woman named Marlene Keating, who became Nolan's stepmother and eventually the only mother figure he really had left. Marlene liked to say she raised that boy from dust. She said it at birthdays, she said it at barbecues, she said it to cashiers if Nolan reached for his wallet. "I raised him," she'd announce, patting his arm with her acrylic nails. "Built him from scratch." Nolan would go quiet every time. At first, I thought it was grief. Then I thought it was loyalty. Later, I understood it was training. Marlene was 63, petite, blonde from a box, and always dressed like she expected a church photographer to appear. She wore soft cardigans, pearl studs, and shoes that made no sound when she walked across a room. That was one of the first things I disliked about her. You never heard her coming. She had raised Nolan after his mom died, yes. She packed lunches, signed school forms, drove him to braces appointments, went to parent-teacher conferences. She also reminded him of it every chance she got. "If it weren't for me, you'd have ended up God knows where," she told him one Thanksgiving when he was 38 and carving turkey in our kitchen. "Marlene," I said, trying to keep my voice light, "he was a child, not a stray cat." She blinked at me. "I'm sorry, did I offend you by telling the truth?" Nolan squeezed my wrist under the counter. "Not now," the squeeze said. So I swallowed it. I swallowed a lot over the years. I swallowed her comments about my career. "Real estate is cute," she once said, while standing in the foyer of a house I had just sold for $612,000. "But it must be stressful not knowing if you'll get paid." "It is," I said. "That's why I learned to be good at it." She smiled like I'd missed the insult. I swallowed her little digs about our house. "Still no formal dining room?" she asked every Christmas, as if square footage were a moral category. I swallowed the way she called Nolan my boy, even when he had gray at his temples. I swallowed the way she would show up with casseroles we didn't ask for and rearrange my spice drawer because cumin does not belong near cinnamon. I swallowed the way she treated our life like an apartment Nolan was renting until he moved back into her approval. My dad, Hank Whitaker, did not swallow things. Dad was 68, widowed, retired from running a small auto body shop, and built like a refrigerator that had opinions. He lived 20 minutes away in a townhouse community where he terrorized the Hoey by measuring the grass height with a ruler whenever they sent him letters. He loved Nolan. More importantly, he respected him. "Nolan shows up," Dad told me once. That counts for more than charm. But he had Marlena's number from the beginning. "She smiles with her mouth only," he said after meeting her at our first big family cookout. "Dad?" "What? I got eyes." "She helped raise Nolan, and apparently wants a parade every Tuesday for it." That was Dad, blunt, loyal, impossible to embarrass. After Mom died 7 years ago, he started coming over for Sunday dinners. Not every week, but often enough that Mabel recognized the sound of his truck and barked like he owed her money. He fixed our sticking back door. He installed motion lights after I complained about a creepy showing. He called me kiddo, even though I was middle-aged and arguing commission splits with men named Todd. That November, my life looked full in a way I had stopped questioning. I had 3 active listings: a cedar-sided colonial with a roof issue the sellers were pretending didn't exist, a condo near a hospital that smelled like lavender plug-ins, and a small ranch owned by a widower who left me voicemails beginning with, "Miss Ashley, I hate to be a bother." Interest rates were making buyers twitchy, but I was still doing okay. Nolan and I had finally decided to make it legal. Not because anything was wrong, because everything was right. Or so I thought. It started with paperwork, as unromantic as that sounds. His company changed insurance plans, and domestic partner coverage became a nightmare of forms and proof. Around the same time, my accountant asked, "Why aren't you two married?" I said, "Because we're stubborn." She peered at me over her glasses. Stubborn is expensive. That night, I brought it up while Nolan was on the living room floor trimming Mabel's nails with the focus of a bomb technician. "So," I said, holding 2 mugs of tea, "what if we stopped being basically married?" He looked up. "Are you breaking up with me?" "I'm asking if you want to make an honest woman out of me before my accountant shames me again." Mabel jerked her paw away. Nolan stared at me for 3 whole seconds. Then his face changed, softened. "Are you serious?" "I mean, after 16 years, I'd hate to rush." He laughed, but his eyes got shiny. "Yeah, yes, absolutely yes." No proposal, no violin, no ring hidden in tiramisu, just us, our arthritic dog, lukewarm tea, and the furnace clicking on. It was perfect. We decided on a courthouse wedding in December. Small, simple. County clerk's office, lunch afterward at an Italian place Dad liked because they didn't put foam on food. My best friend Tessa would come, Nolan's co-worker Ben, my dad, a few people who mattered. When Nolan told Marlene, I was standing close enough to hear both sides of the phone call because he had put it on speaker while unloading the dishwasher. "We're getting married," he said. There was a pause. Not a happy gasp. Not, "Oh my God." Not even, "Finally." Just silence. Long enough that Nolan glanced at the screen to see if the call dropped. Then Marlene said, "At your age?" I looked up from the silverware drawer. Nolan's jaw tightened. "Yes, Marlene, at my age." "Well," she said slowly, "I suppose if Ashley needs the legal protection, that makes sense." I mouthed, "Wow." Nolan turned away, but I saw his ears go red. "We want you there." "Of course," she said. "Someone should be." After he hung up, I said, "That was warm." "She's weird about big changes. She's weird about me breathing near you." Ash, she's not going to change." "I'm not asking her to change," I said. "I'm asking you to notice when she stabs me with a butter knife and calls it serving dinner." He leaned against the dishwasher, tired already. "I notice." That stopped me more than if he'd argued. "Then why do you let her?" Nolan looked down at the wet spoon in his hand. For a second, he wasn't 42. He was 9, 11, 15. Some age where grief had opened the door and Marlene had walked in carrying rules. "Because it's easier," he said quietly. I should have hugged him. I should have said, "Then let's make it harder together." But I was angry, and anger makes you cheap with kindness. "Easier for who?" I asked. His face closed. We didn't fight, not exactly. We just moved around each other for the rest of the evening like furniture had been rearranged in the dark. He took Mabel out. I answered emails. The furnace clicked. Rain tapped the kitchen window. The next morning, Marlene texted me. Not Nolan, me. "Ashley, since the wedding is rushed, I assume you won't mind if I help make it respectable." I stared at the word respectable while standing in line at a title office, holding a folder for a closing and a paper cup of coffee burning my palm. I typed, "We're keeping it simple, but thank you." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Simple is one thing, embarrassing is another. I did not respond. That was my first mistake, apparently, because silence with Marlene was not peace. It was an invitation for her to narrate your motives. By lunch, Nolan called me. "Did Mom text you?" I was sitting in my car outside a vacant condo, eating almonds from a glove compartment bag because my noon showing had run long. She texted me, "Yes. Are we calling her Mom today?" "Ashley." "What?" "She says you snapped at her." I laughed once, sharp. I said thank you. "She said you made it clear she wasn't welcome. She is inventing weather and then blaming me for rain." He sighed. "Can we just let her help with lunch or flowers or something harmless?" There it was, the word that keeps disasters alive. Harmless. I had heard women use it about mother-in-law comments, husbands drinking, brothers borrowing money, bosses touching shoulders too long. Harmless was the little rug people kept throwing over a trap door. "What does she want?" I asked. "To host a small dinner after the ceremony at her house instead of the restaurant." "No." "Ash." "No, Nolan. We already put down the deposit at Bellafiore. My dad picked the calamari like it was a college major. Tessa took off work. Your coworker Ben is bringing his wife. We are not moving our wedding lunch to your stepmother's living room so she can serve ham and judge my shoes. She just wants to feel included. She wants control." He went quiet. That silence hurt worse than yelling, because I could hear him choosing which woman's discomfort he was more afraid of. "Fine," he said finally. "I'll handle it." But he didn't handle it. Not really. Marlene started arriving at our house with bags. First it was napkins. Linen look, she said, even though we did not need napkins for a courthouse ceremony and a restaurant lunch. Then it was a guest book, white satin, silver script, smelling faintly like a craft store. "We have 12 guests," I said. "They can sign a Post-it." She smiled. "You'll appreciate pictures later." Then she brought a cake topper, 2 porcelain figures, the bride with yellow hair, the groom with brown, both expressionless and eerie. Nolan held it like it might explode. "That's nice." "It was on sale," Marlene said. "No sense wasting money when Ashley waited this long." I felt something in my chest go cold. "Waited?" I asked. Her eyes flicked to me. "Well, honey, most women who want marriage don't wait 16 years unless they're waiting for the man to be worth something." Nolan said, "Marlene." Not, "Don't talk to Ashley like that." Not, "Apologize." Just her name. She lifted both hands. "I'm joking. Everybody is so sensitive." After she left, I put the cake topper in the hall closet behind the vacuum bags. Nolan saw me. "I'll talk to her," he said. "Don't talk. Set a boundary." He rubbed his face with both hands. "You make it sound easy." "No, I make it sound necessary." The first real strike came 9 days before the wedding. I was at a final walkthrough for a young couple buying their first house, a squat little Cape Cod with a blue front door and radiators that clanged like old pipes in a movie. My phone kept buzzing in my coat pocket. I ignored it until the buyers went upstairs to measure a nursery wall. 5 missed calls from my dad. That alone made my stomach drop. Dad texted like every word cost him $1. He didn't call 5 times unless someone was in an ambulance or the Browns had made a decision so stupid he needed witnesses. I called back from the empty dining room. "Dad? You okay?" he asked. "Yes, why?" "You sure?" "Dad, what happened?" He exhaled through his nose the way he did when trying not to swear. "I just got a call from Marlene." My hand tightened around my phone. "She asked me how I felt about financing your wedding." "What?" "Said since you and Nolan are clearly struggling, she didn't want me blindsided when you came asking. Said you'd already been borrowing against future commissions." For a second, the house tilted. I looked at the old radiator, at the dust in the sunbeam, at my own black flats on someone else's hardwood floor. "I have never borrowed against future commissions." "I know that." "Dad." "I know, kiddo." My throat burned anyway. Why would she say that? Because she's testing doors. That was such a Hank Whitaker phrase that I almost laughed. Almost. "She also said something about a prenuptial agreement," he added. My face went hot. "What about it?" "That Nolan would need one because you have uneven income and expensive taste." I looked down at my coat. It was 6 years old. The lining had a tear near the pocket that I kept forgetting to sew. "What did you say?" "I told her if she was calling to audition for a financial colonoscopy, she should bill Medicare." Despite everything, a laugh punched out of me. Then I heard Dad's voice shift. "Ashley, listen to me. People like her don't smear you for fun. They smear you so when they hit you later, everyone thinks you had it coming." The buyer's footsteps creaked overhead. "I have to finish this walkthrough," I whispered. "Call me after." "I will." But I didn't, because when I got home, Nolan was sitting at the kitchen table with Marlene's guest book in front of him and a look on his face I couldn't read. Mabel was in her bed, awake, watching us like she knew humans were about to disappoint her. "Did you ask Marlene to call my dad about money?" I asked. Nolan's head snapped up. "What?" "She told him I'm borrowing against commissions and hinted I'm after your paycheck." His expression went from confusion to exhaustion so fast I knew she had already been in his ear. "She said she was concerned." "She lied." "She said your dad sounded hostile." "My dad sounded hostile because your stepmother called him to imply I'm a gold digger with a Zillow login." Nolan flinched. "Don't make jokes." "I'm not joking." He pushed the guest book away. "She shouldn't have called him." No, she shouldn't have invented a financial crisis. I know. Do you? That was the worst thing I could have said. His eyes hardened. I'm not the enemy, Ashley. Then stop standing behind her. He stood up so fast, the chair legs scraped the tile. Mabel barked once, startled. You have no idea what it was like, he said. The room went still. I lowered my voice. Then tell me. He shook his head. You don't want to know. You want a villain. No, I want my wedding to stop feeling like a hostage negotiation. He grabbed his jacket off the back of the chair. Where are you going? For a drive. It was raining, cold needles against the windows. Nolan? He paused at the garage door, his back to me. I'm tired, Ash. Then he left. I stood in the kitchen, listening to the garage motor rumble shut, and for the first time in 16 years, I felt like there was a locked room inside my husband, and Marlene had the only key. He came back an hour later. He apologized, but not all the way. I apologized too, also not all the way. We did that thing couples do when they are afraid of the size of the crack. We put a rug over it and stepped carefully. Then, 3 days later, I got the email. It was from a lender I used often, a woman named Priscilla Grant, who wore red lipstick even on Zoom and could smell mortgage fraud through drywall. Subject line, need clarification, ASAP. Ashley, I received the attached gift letter and supporting note for the Pierce transaction. The buyer says this came from your office. Did you prepare or send this? My stomach dipped. The Pierce transaction was my cedar-sided colonial. The buyers were getting help from an aunt for their down payment. Gift letters were normal, but I hadn't prepared anything yet because underwriting hadn't requested the final version. I opened the attachment. It was a PDF on my brokerage letterhead. My name was typed at the bottom, and above it, in blue ink, was a signature that looked almost like mine. Almost. The A had the wrong slant. The W in Whitaker was too rounded. Anyone glancing quickly might accept it. Anyone who had watched me sign hundreds of agency disclosures would know it was off. The note said I had personally verified that the buyer's $14,800 gift funds were seasoned and available. I had not verified that. I had not written that. I had not signed that. My fingers went numb. I called Priscilla immediately. I didn't send this, I said. I didn't think so, she replied. No hello, no cushioning. That's why I called you before escalating. Where did it come from? Buyer forwarded it, said it was dropped at their apartment mailbox in an envelope. Dropped? That's what she said. Priscilla, this could blow up my license. I know. That's why I'm telling you to document everything right now. Email me from your work account stating you did not author, sign, or deliver this document. Call your broker today. My mouth had gone so dry I could barely make sound. Priscilla, I said, if this came from my office, there's a trail. There's always a trail, she said. The question is whether someone was stupid enough to leave it. Someone was. My broker, Denise Malloy, shut her office door when I got there and read the PDF without moving her face. Denise had been selling real estate since before I had a driver's license, and she had the emotional range of a bank vault when trouble walked in. This is not your signature, she said. No. Did you give anyone access to your letterhead? No. Computer? Nolan uses the home printer sometimes, but not my work laptop. Never clients. Never Marlene. Denise looked up at that name. Marlene? My almost mother-in-law. Why did you say her name like that? Because my body knew before my brain was ready to admit it. I told Denise everything. The calls to my dad, the comments about money, the sudden obsession with our wedding, the way Marlene had begun floating words like irresponsible and desperate around anyone who would listen. Denise leaned back. Ashley, I'm going to say this cleanly. We notify compliance. We notify the lender in writing. We preserve everything. And you do not have another conversation with that woman alone. I don't have proof it was her. No, Denise said. You have a pattern. Proof is what we collect next. That night, I told Nolan. He sat at the kitchen table with both hands flat on the wood, staring at the forged signature on my printed copy. His face had gone gray in a way I had never seen before. "It could ruin you," he said. "Yes." "Your license." "Yes." "Why would anyone?" He stopped. I watched the thought arrive. I watched him fight it. I watched the little boy in him try to protect the woman who had fed him and guilted him and called it love. "Nolan," I said softly, "look at me." He did. "Do you think she could have done this?" His jaw worked. "I don't want to." "That isn't what I asked." He looked down at the paper again. "She was at the house last week when you were showing the hospital condo. She said she needed to print directions for some church thing. I let her use the office." My stomach turned cold. "My office?" "I was in the garage. She said she knew how to print." I stood up so fast the chair knocked backward. "Ash, my work laptop was locked. The desktop wasn't. The old desktop in the corner, the one we used for recipes, shipping labels, and printing boarding passes. The one connected to the same printer where I kept blank brokerage letterhead in the lower tray because I was careless in my own home." I walked into the office and pulled open the printer drawer. The stack of letterhead was lower than it should have been. That was the first time I cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears slipping down my face while I stood over a printer like it had betrayed me personally. Nolan came to the doorway. "I'm sorry," he said. "Sorry doesn't fix forged documents." "I know." "No, Nolan, you don't. Because she didn't just insult me. She tried to put my name on a financial representation I didn't make. That is fraud. That is my livelihood." He swallowed hard. "What do you want me to do?" I wiped my face with the heel of my hand. "Choose reality." He nodded once, like it physically hurt. "Okay." The next morning, he called Marlena on speaker, with me, Denise, and Priscilla listening silently from a conference call Denise had arranged. Ohio is a one-party consent state, and Denise had already made sure we understood what that meant. "Marlene," Nolan said, "did you use Ashley's office printer last week?" A pause. "Good morning to you, too." "Did you?" "I printed directions." "Anything else?" Another pause, smaller this time. "Nolan, I don't appreciate being interrogated. Did you create a document on Ashley's letterhead?" Her voice changed, not guilty, offended. "Why would I even know how to do that?" Priscilla, on mute, texted Denise. She didn't answer. Nolan closed his eyes. A forged letter showed up in a mortgage file. "Well," Marlene said, "maybe Ashley should keep better control of her business." There it was. Not confusion, not shock, not, "Oh my God, is Ashley okay?" A prepared sentence. Nolan opened his eyes, and something in them had finally shifted. "I didn't tell you what kind of document it was," he said. Silence. Then Marlene laughed. "You're being ridiculous. I have a hair appointment." She hung up. Denise saved the recording. Priscilla preserved the email chain. I filed a police report that afternoon, my hands trembling while an officer named Stokes took notes under fluorescent lights that made everyone look sick. He didn't promise arrests. He didn't pound a desk. He said, "Document everything, ma'am. People think paper crimes aren't crimes because nobody bleeds. They're wrong." For 3 days, I barely slept. Then my dad called. "I found something," he said. "What?" Marlene left me a voicemail. "Dad, she leaves everyone voicemails." "Not like this." He played it for me over speaker. Marlene's voice filled my kitchen, sweet as artificial creamer. "Hank, I know Ashley gets emotional, so I'm asking you as her father to help her be sensible. If she signs a little acknowledgement before the wedding, we can keep this private. Nolan owes me for what I put into him. $20,000 is less than I deserve, frankly, but I'm willing to accept it as a family settlement. If Ashley refuses, I'm afraid people may start looking at her signatures more closely." I sat down slowly. Nolan, standing beside me, whispered, "Jesus." Dad came back on the line. "You hear that last part?" "Yes." That's extortion with pearls. It was also the key. Denise referred me to an attorney she trusted, a compact woman named Lila Chen, who had a tiny office downtown and the calmest voice I had ever heard. Lila listened to the voicemail twice, read the forged gift letter, reviewed Marlene's texts, and then looked at Nolan. "Mr. Keating, I need to ask you something uncomfortable." "Okay." "Has Marlene ever demanded money from you for raising you?" Nolan's face went blank. I turned to him. "Nolan?" He rubbed both palms down his thighs. "When I got my first full-time job, she made me pay her $200 a month for back support. I was 19. I thought it was normal." Lila's pen stopped. "For how long?" "Until I moved in with Ashley, about 6 years." My heart cracked open. "That's $14,400, Lila said. "Any records?" "Old checks, maybe. Bank archives." "She recently demanded $20,000 from Ashley?" He nodded. "Did she put it in writing?" "She texted me that Ashley should contribute to the debt she benefited from," he said. Lila's eyebrows lifted. "Please send me that." By the time our wedding morning came, Lila had advised us to proceed exactly as planned. "Do not cancel your life because someone is threatening a circus," she said. "But bring witnesses. Bring copies, and if she says anything defamatory in public, let her. The more specific she gets, the more useful she becomes." So that December morning, I put on an ivory suit instead of a gown. My hands shook while I fastened my earrings. Nolan stood in our bedroom doorway wearing a charcoal suit and a tie I had got him years earlier for a banquet he hated. "You still want to marry me?" he asked. The question hurt. I crossed the room and fixed his tie, even though it was already straight. "I want to marry the man who called reality by its name." His eyes filled. "I should have done it sooner." "Yes," I said, "you should have." He nodded. "But you're doing it now," I said. "That matters." Mabel watched from the bed, wrapped in a fleece blanket, deeply unimpressed with the legal institution of marriage. Dad picked us up because he insisted, claiming, "No daughter of mine is driving herself to a courthouse wedding while there's a lunatic with stationery on the loose." At the county clerk's office, the floor smelled like wet wool and floor cleaner. Our 12 guests gathered near the counter. Tessa in a red coat, Ben and his wife Denise pretending she was just there as a friend, Priscilla with lipstick the color of a stop sign, Lila standing slightly apart with a leather folder, Dad with his marine tie clip, and a few people who loved us enough to look cheerful in government lighting. Marlene arrived 7 minutes late. Beige pearls, cream coat, hair sprayed into obedience. She kissed Nolan's cheek before he could move away. "My boy." He stepped back. "Marlene, not Mom." She looked at me as if I were a stain on the tile. "Well," she said brightly, "I suppose we're all pretending today." Lila's head tilted. Nolan took my hand. "No, we're done pretending." Marlene's smile tightened. "Ashley has turned you against your own mother." "You did that," he said. His voice shook, but it held. "You forged her letterhead. You tried to extort her father. You took money from me for years and called it love." The clerk behind the counter froze with a stamp in her hand. Marlene went white, then red. "How dare you accuse me in public?" Dad stepped forward. "Careful, Marlene. Public is exactly where you chose to come." She looked at the faces around us and found no soft place to land. No one rushed to soothe her. No one explained her away. For the first time since I'd known her, the room did not rearrange itself around her comfort. Lila opened her folder. "Mrs. Keating, you've been advised not to contact my client except through counsel. Consider this your reminder." Marlene's mouth opened, closed. Then she did the only thing left to her. She left. The ceremony lasted 9 minutes. Nolan's hand was warm in mine. When the clerk pronounced us married, he laughed once, broken and relieved, and I kissed him in front of the bulletproof glass and the county seal. In January, Marlene accepted a diversion agreement after Leela handed over the recording, voicemail, printer logs, and mortgage documents. Restitution came in ugly installments. Nolan never cashed his mother's apology card. because there wasn't one. We sold the house in spring and bought a smaller one with a sunroom for Mabel. Nolan started therapy. I changed every password, locked every cabinet, and stopped mistaking endurance for peace. Sometimes love is not the family you survive. Sometimes it is the witness who stands beside you while the truth finally enters the room and refuses to leave.